Support comes from St. Louis Public Library Foundation, helping the library serve children and their families with programs and services needed to become lifelong readers. More information about the foundation is at slpl.org.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Artificial intelligence is changing the world in profound ways, and one of the major forces behind the development of AI is Sam Altman. Sam grew up in St. Louis and graduated high school in 2003 from John Burroughs School in Ladue. He's the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT, the chatbot that answers questions and prompts in human-like language. ChatGPT has millions of active users every month, and prominent companies like Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Slack, and Duolingo use it. Sam Altman talked to students at his alma mater this morning, and throughout this conversation, we'll talk about those interactions, about his St. Louis upbringing, and about the origins, emergence, and uses of AI, along with the newest version of ChatGPT. And he joins me now. Sam Altman, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to talk about artificial intelligence a little later in the show, but let's start with where you were this morning at your alma mater, Burroughs, and you talked to a school-wide assembly and then to a smaller group of students after that. You were very much at ease there. That really stood out. You seemed to be enjoying yourself.
Well, I love to talk about AI in general. I love to talk to students about AI. It's amazing how much young people have sort of driven the adoption of ChatGPT and AI more broadly. And I love Burroughs. I had a wonderful time there, and I don't get to go back very much, but it feels great to just see my old teachers, and I have a lot of happy memories from when I was a student there.
Was there an interaction with a student or something that they asked you that stood out? And that could be during that formal period, or maybe when you were sort of on stage and taking photos with people.
So yesterday we launched O1, this new model, and it's a huge step forward. It's much, much smarter and better at reasoning than anything we've had before. And one of the students came up to me and said, I stayed up last night playing around with it, and it's too smart. Like, what does this mean? What am I supposed to do with my life now? Like, what am I supposed to focus on? What should I go study in college?
Right.
And that stood out.
Mm-hmm. How did it make you feel to hear that kind of question? Like, what did you say? Was it?
I think the first reactions to AI are always interesting. When we launched ChatGPT, the world had a sort of collective freak out for a little while. And then people got over it and said, well, this is just part of life now. And why is it not faster? Why is it not better? Why is it not smarter? And that's something I love about just the human spirit of wanting more and more. But it was interesting to watch through the students' eyes, because I've been watching this technology develop for a couple of years and so excited to share it with the world. But to get to see him grapple with it for the first time and be so excited, that was very fun. But what we talked about is how this is just a new tool that people will use to do more than they could before. The human capability will vastly increase when you can use this to accomplish way more than you could without it. But that's really the story of technology and human progress more broadly. We keep building better tools. We keep building more and more. Our ability keeps increasing. And I think he left the conversation sort of reassured and excited.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to, again, the setting that you were in. You grew up here in St. Louis, and you did go to school at Burroughs, but you have lived elsewhere now, Sam, for about 20 years. What are some of your fondest memories about what it was like to grow up here, whether that has to do with school or is outside it?
I love St. Louis. I love growing up here. I'm always very happy to come back. As soon as you said that, the first memory that came to mind was riding my bike around Forest Park. Mm-hmm. I used to do that a lot after school. With my dad when I was littler, and then alone and with friends as I got a little bit older. And it's funny how much places and sort of physical space stick out in memory, but I could still, with my eyes shut, I think, tell you every turn on that bike trail.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that came to mind as something I really loved. But But there's a lot of stuff like swimming at Shaw Park in the summers. I spent a lot of time in high school at Coffee Cartel. Very happy memories there. Sadly, it's gone now. But for a long time, every time I came back to St. Louis, I would go get my same mocha frap drink there, and it was so good. So a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Do you still go to bike at Forest Park?
I don't have a bike in St. Louis anymore, sadly. But now that I'm thinking this, I would like to find a way to go do that.
Okay. Well, Sam, as we are sitting here, and you said that you did listen to St. Louis Public Radio when you were growing up. I mean, what does it feel like to be sitting in here now talking on the station that you listened to?
I was just thinking about that. With my mom and dad in the car, we'd listen to NPR a lot on the way to school in particular, but other times too. And as like a little kid, maybe you'd rather be listening to music, but then I came to like really enjoy it and love it. And it is definitely strange to be sitting here now, but it's very cool.
Yeah. Are there developments that you've seen each time you've come back that help you to see how much has developed here in the time that you have lived, in another city, another area?
Totally. There was really no startup, no technology scene at all when I was a kid here, and watching that develop in the couple of decades since has been awesome. Obviously I'm biased, but I think that's a wonderful thing, and it's been cool to develop. Just before this, we got lunch at this place, Neon Greens, that grows hydroponic lettuce. It was absolutely delicious. They used ChatGPT to come up with some of their recipes, which was cool. But that was like a very cool restaurant. There was nothing like that when I was growing up here, and fun to see that.
And were you looking for a connection to ChatGPT when you were making a selection as to where you were going to eat today?
No, I was looking for delicious food. But that was
right. And I think recently there was also something on Morning Edition about a chocolate chip recipe that was produced by AI.
I didn't hear about that one.
Oh, okay. We'll have to share that one with
One
you.
thing, though, that I have been hearing is that this idea of using ChatGPT as it's gotten better for recipes apparently has become like a minor trend, and people are having good success with it.
And taste is a very subjective thing, isn't it?
Totally. I think to get good results, you have to tell it, like, here's the kinds of things I like and the flavors I like. And
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about AI later. Thinking about AI, this morning you had talked about being in the computer lab at John Burroughs. What was happening in that lab and in your mind that was the seed of what ChatGPT that is now?
So I was a computer nerd basically as long as I can remember. And I was also like a sci-fi nerd. So when I went to elementary school, I went to Captain in Clayton. And they had these Apple II GSs. This was a really long time ago, really old computer. But one of the things that I think was so special about growing up at that time and that kind of computer is you could very easily learn to program it. Now I think it's gotten easier again to learn to program a computer, but there was a long period in between where it was not so easy. And so we would be in the classroom and we had these things, and you could like do a few things with them, not very much, but one thing you could do is you could program in BASIC right away. And I don't remember how we started learning. I think like one of the students' dads knew a little bit about it or something, but it was then this just like amazing period of exploration where we sort of all figured it out together, and you could get these computers to do things. And we had these horrible old printers, those kinds with the like perforated stuff down the sides that fed dot matrix printers.
Right.
And me and some other kids wrote this program to like print out all the prime numbers on the screen from like 0 to 1,000,000 or something. And then we thought it'd be funny to like print it out on paper.
Yeah.
And so we like started it right before the end of the day, and then came back the next day and it had gone through the whole thing and used all the whatever the ribbon was and the paper, and gotten a little bit of trouble. But that was fun. And then I kept being interested in computers, and eventually we got one at home. And I like learned to program a little bit more. And I went to Burroughs, and at Burroughs eventually there was an AP computer science class in that computer lab. And had this amazing teacher, Mrs. Kepchar, who taught us. And there were maybe like 16 of us sitting in there on old Macs. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And I remember like we talked about sort of memory of physical space. I always sat at the same computer in there, and I still remember like where it was in the room and kind of like the way the chair worked. And in fact, I finally had to change it because of a password compromise, but just as like a degree of how much this whole thing imprinted on me. The random password that I was like assigned for the Linux system we used in that class, I used as my password until like 2 years ago for other stuff too. So it was like this very formative thing. And I was like, wow, I can make these computers do whatever, do anything. And then while that was going on, I had been, reading sci-fi, watching sci-fi, super excited about artificial intelligence, and kind of dreamed that someday somebody was going to do it and it was going to be amazing. And I, of course, would have loved to play some small part in it, but it was sort of this, fantasy off in the distance that someone else was going to do.
Mm-hmm. And then you ended it.
And then here we are.
Yeah. We're going to take a very quick break here, but we'll be back shortly to continue our conversation with Sam Altman, co-founder and CEO of OpenAI. Welcome back. I'm Elaine Cha. Let's return to our conversation with Sam Altman, the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT. Before we get into OpenAI and ChatGPT, Sam, you were saying that you really love talking about your St. Louis memories. Is there another one that you feel like people should know in order to understand better, who you are and how you've come to do what you do now?
This is not a specific memory, but it's something that I really love, and I think you don't get quite the same in other places. That someone once said that St. Louis is the biggest small town in America. I'm sure other towns claim that too, but I certainly felt that growing up here. You'd like go to Schnucks and you would see a bunch of people you knew, and you'd like be on the streets and you'd see like, kids of your parents' friends, and there was. There's something really lovely about just sort of like feeling deeply part of a community. And I know it's like a thing that people say. I assume they say this if you live in St. Louis too, but if you're outside of St. Louis, the thing they say is when people ask like where you went to school, they meant where you went to high school. And there's something about this community where people are here for many generations, and other people's family members of people, and there's sort of like a real sense of roots in a community that's small enough that you can sort of run into people a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think I didn't realize how special that was growing up, because I assumed that was just what the world is like. And it's certainly not like that anywhere else I've been. I think that's just a very cool thing.
So Sam, has that in any way informed how you have approached the development of ChatGPT, which started with the co-founding of OpenAI?
I'm sure it has in all sorts of deep ways that I don't fully appreciate. Someone gave me a shirt that says you can like take the Midwest out. You can take the kid out of the Midwest, but you can't take the Midwest out of the kid. Mm-hmm. And I feel that more and more as I get older. And I think it's just like, I think there's something very different about growing up here than what it would have been like if I had grown up in the Bay Area or New York or something like that. And I'm really grateful for it.
Mm-hmm. So then OpenAI and ChatGPT, there are millions of people who are using ChatGPT, which started with this kid who grew up in the Midwest. For people who aren't familiar with it, Sam, how do you describe ChatGPT in the simplest terms?
First of all, I'm one of many people that worked on it, and certainly not the most important person that worked on it. This really has come from just incredible AI researchers who have worked tirelessly on this for years, and also the people for decades before us that laid the groundwork to make all of this possible. The way I would describe it is we, the whole field, not just the people at OpenAI, but this collective huge amount of work. And it's really more than the field. I mean, if you think about what had to happen to get us to this moment, the whole semiconductor industry had to develop. People had to figure out how to make computer programming languages. People had to figure out how to make operating systems. People had to figure out networking gear. People had to go build GPUs. This is just like a massive contribution over a long period of time from millions of people coming together to get us to this point where we get to now put our brick in the path. But all of that comes together and lets us make a computer program that we can debate the semantics of the word, but let's say it at least appears to be able to understand human language and images and a lot of other things, and then do useful work for you. So if you say, help me come up with a recipe for a salad, I like these things, or translate this from Spanish into English, or help me learn this new skill. Here's what I know right now. Can you teach me more? And then can you quiz me on it? Or I am struggling with a medical problem. Can you help me, figure out what I might have? Or I'm trying to write a computer program that has a bug. Can you help me find it? We get this very capable general purpose assistant that can help people do whatever they'd like.
Mm-hmm. And what you talked about, those last 2 points about a medical problem and a computer program, I think is very apropos of what was released just yesterday, which was the new version of ChatGPT. And this one is one that can reason through math and science, and that kind of freaked that Burroughs student out. Can you describe more specifically what this latest version, Sam, does that others haven't or perhaps could not?
The biggest new breakthrough here is the ability to reason through a difficult problem, particularly a sort of science or engineering problem, over a long period of time. And the results here have really surprised us. This is a system that you could have take a very difficult math competition and score in the top few hundred students nationwide, or enter a programming competition and be competitive with some of the best people in the world. And that's cool, but the point of this is not to go show that a computer can be good at taking a test. That's not that useful. But what it can do for helping a researcher find cures for diseases faster, or discovering new materials to help us with clean energy faster, or who knows what else. That's what we're really excited about. And, this has been in people's hands for only about 24 hours. So we haven't seen yet the world's long-term reaction and how they'll actually use it. But the excitement level is very high.
Mm-hmm. I mean, is there some use that you hope to see? You hope to see it have this ChatGPT that is specific to science and math?
Personally, I think it'll do a lot of wonderful things. Personally, 2 areas that I'm very excited about is I hope this can change the nature of computer programming and make computer programmers able to be way more efficient, do things with ease that were very difficult before. And I believe that the world can use way more software than gets written today. And if this new tool can help programmers be 10 times more productive or whatever, I think we'll all get to benefit from people's creativity to an astonishingly wonderful degree. And then the other is, ever since I was a little kid, huge believer in scientific discovery and the importance of that to driving our world and our economy forward. And we always have talked about how someday in the future, we hoped that AI could help accelerate scientific progress. And this is the first time I think we're close. So I'm tremendously excited about that.
Yeah. One of the questions that has been out there, floating around the internet, and also that was brought up by a number of students today, this morning, were the concerns around future prospects for work. What is it that you say, Sam, to people who are concerned that AI is going to take their jobs away?
People worry about that with every technological revolution. And somewhat for good reason, because some jobs do go away. We always find new jobs. I think human demand for new things and also desire to be useful to other people, to express creativity, to sort of contribute to society for status, lots of things. That's not going anywhere. And so I don't think we'll run out of jobs. People have been hoping for that in some sense for a long time. I think as a society, we're always a little bit confused about whether we want people to work more or work less. But the promised we're only going to work 8 hours a week. That has never come. And I don't think that's going to come. But work of the future will look very different. And I hope that if we could fast forward 100 years, we would look at what people are doing and say, that's not work, that's a hobby, or that's art, or that's something. But they're not, these people are not struggling to survive. They're not working because they have to. People from a few hundred years ago might look at you and I right now and say, well, that's not really work. They're kind of hanging out and having a conversation. And, I love what I do. I assume you love what you do. And I think that's great. And hopefully other people enjoy listening to this, and we're providing something of value. But the nature of work always evolves, and it will keep evolving. But the fundamental human drive, I'm confident that's not going to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Human drive, and then there's also human instinct, or maybe inclination. There can be both good and bad uses of AI. What is a great example, Sam, of how it is being used to positive ends?
Maybe this is on my mind because I was at Burroughs this morning, but definitely what's happening with education is been remarkable to see. Khan Academy was an early builder. There's now many others of these really quite wonderful experiences to help students learn using AI. Healthcare has been another case. Color Health is using our technology to help people have personalized treatment plans for cancer, apparently with great results. I think we'll see a lot more of that. We talked a little bit about programmers, but since we launched O1 yesterday, I can't resist bringing it up again. I think we're about to see such a change in what a programmer is capable of with these tools, and that is going to have such positive impact on all of us.
Mm-hmm. Speaking to concerns and education, because you brought that up as an area of positive development, what about students who use ChatGPT to write their essays and what they are not then doing around independent and critical thinking?
Yeah. The reason I think it's important to teach people to write is not because we need them necessarily to write a lot, although there's a lot of value in that for its own sake, but I think writing is such a wonderful way to learn how to think, and it's such a helpful skill. I still write only for myself all the time to try to think through something or figure it out, and then I delete the file when I'm done. Mm-hmm. But we've got to find ways to teach people that skill somehow. I happen to think writing may still be the best way, but maybe we find something better. And we will find new ways to ensure that people are doing it for that purpose. And then there's a lot of other things about writing essays in school that I think didn't really provide any value to me, and it's fine for those to adapt.
Mm-hmm. And just to clarify, when you say writing, do you mean, because you said delete, you mean typing
yeah.
it? Do you ever do anything?
I take all my notes by hand on paper and pen.
Okay. Interesting to note.
But if I have to type up, if I'm trying to think through a memo, I always would type that.
Sure.
It's so much faster.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that has come up this week, and one of the questions this morning had to do with the election. After this week's presidential debate, Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris, and part of Taylor Swift's post read, quote, "Recently I was made aware that AI of me, falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run, was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the dangers of spreading misinformation," unquote. Now, I understand that the deep fake of Taylor Swift was not made with OpenAI products, but to that point about fears regarding AI and the dangers of misinformation being spread, what do you say to that, Sam?
We take a really hard stance on that with our tools. I think what's been happening with deepfakes is very objectionable, and the world should be able to take a clear stance on that. We obviously can't control what other companies do and what other people's tools are, but we think it should be a cut and dry issue, and this is hopefully an example that is easy for the world to agree should not be an acceptable use of AI.
Mm-hmm. And safeguards, what safeguards should artificial intelligence have in place to verify authenticity of content?
I think there's a number of approaches that can work there. There's lots of things people can do about watermarking. There's lots of things people can do about what's generated by their own tool. But I do think we're going to be in a world where all sorts of convincing generated content from services that choose not to enforce this will be prevalent. And my hope is that, and this has been part of our strategy, is that the world just learns fairly quickly, like they did when Photoshop came out, that you can no longer necessarily trust what you see on the internet. And you've got to apply a sophisticated level of skepticism. Now, I think people are pretty good at this. I think people can learn and adapt quickly to sort of a changing environment, but I think that'll be an important change we make.
So we will be sort of building our BS
immune
meter.
system, yeah.
Immune system is probably a better way to put it. In August, OpenAI reached an agreement with a federal agency, the U.S. AI Safety Institute, and that was to pre-release future AI models to that agency. Is that pre-release something that was in place for the new ChatGPT model?
Yeah, we worked with them to test O1 pre-release, and we had a great experience.
Yeah.
It was very helpful.
I mean, what can you tell about the release so far? I mean, you got one in-person sort of testimony this morning, but...
Literally 24 hours in, and I've been traveling. I was in D.C. and Michigan yesterday, and I'm in St. Louis, obviously. So I have not... I'm not as close to this as I would like, but following along from our internal conversation and seeing what people have been saying about it online, people seem to really love it.
So then there's this larger question, Sam, about government responsibility. What, in your view, is the government's responsibility in regulating artificial intelligence?
Like with any new technology, there are going to need to be some rules of the road. And there are going to, as these systems become more powerful, there's going to need to be some safety verification. You know, when I get on an airplane, I don't sit there and check all the engineering myself. I trust that there was a government agency that ran a process that means I can get on an airplane and have a very, very high degree of confidence that I'll get to where I'm going safely. And, you know, it's popular to say, oh, regulation's terrible and slows things down. And it does slow things down in some cases, and it is annoying. And I'm sure there's more downsides than we even realize. But it is nice that when you get on that airplane, you trust that it's going to be safe. And I think we'll want something like that as powerful AI systems get deployed into the world.
You mentioned the White House earlier, and you were among several tech CEOs who were there at the White House for meetings yesterday. What was that meeting about, Sam, and what did you take away from it?
It was about how we can build more infrastructure for AI in the United States, particularly about the energy needs for that, but the whole topic more broadly. And I think, unfortunately, the U.S. is not the easiest place in the world to build infrastructure. But this technology is so strategic and so important that we need to figure out how we're going to build the critical AI infrastructure in the United States. And we feel very passionately about that and want to ensure that we do it. And that was discussing the problems and potential solutions there. That was the main thrust of the meeting.
To the question of energy, AI uses large data centers, and they need to be running constantly with air conditioning, a lot of water to keep things cool. Are you at all concerned about the energy needs and climate impact of AI?
More broadly, I think the world needs a lot more energy than we have right now. AI is one reason for it, a fairly small one, but it's one. If you study the history of energy, one of the things that at least jumped out at me was every time the cost of energy comes down dramatically, quality of life goes way up. And I heard someone say recently that if they could pick only one thing to do for the poorest 25% of the world, they would cut the cost of energy in half for those people, and it would have a dramatic effect. And obviously, if you could cut it by a factor of 10 or whatever, it would have an even more dramatic effect. But I think that the two fundamental commodities of the future that we are headed to are intelligence and energy. The ability to have ideas, the ability to get intellectual things done, and then energy, the ability to make them happen in the world, including running the AI itself. So we will need more clean, safe, reliable, robust energy for AI, but mostly I think we just need it if we want growth and prosperity to continue. And I think we've got a few interesting things there nuclear fission and fusion both, solar and storage. I think we're going to figure this out one way or the other, but the more we can do, the better.
We're going to take a very quick break here, but we'll be back to continue our conversation with Sam Altman, co-founder and CEO of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. Welcome back. I'm Elaine Cha. Let's return to our conversation with Sam Altman, the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT. Sam, we asked for listener questions before the show, and one person sent us a note saying they didn't have a question but wanted to work for you, and they sent their resume. So to this point, what is it that you look for in an employee?
First of all, please send me that resume.
Okay.
That'd be great. We look for innovative spirit, creativity, the ability to grind super hard and focus on a problem for a long period of time. In our kind of research, that really pays off. Obviously, intelligence, collaboration, all the normal things you would expect. Optimism. I think optimism for our kind of research really pays off too. We certainly look for people who get stuff done. That's, in whatever life context they've been in. I think that's a good predictor of future success. People who believe in AGI and our mission of making it safe and broadly available, all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Now, this next question has to do with the work culture at OpenAI. Last November, the board of OpenAI fired you because they said that you were not consistently candid in your communication with the board, and there were headlines for days about this. And about 1 week later, you were reinstated, and there was a mostly new board at OpenAI. A listener named Ryan Lilly sent us an email. He writes, "It seems like the tech world can often be a toxic work environment. We've heard reports of terrible conditions at companies like X and Blizzard Activision. Meanwhile, when the board ousted Sam Altman, 95% of the employees said they would quit if he was not reinstated." So Sam, what is it that makes the work culture of OpenAI so different? So much so that an entire company almost would quit to support their boss.
I don't think it was to support me. I think it was to support the mission. I think people, all of us, really care about what we're doing. We realize it's high stakes, but we're very committed to it, and we're very honored we get to play the role that we do in helping shepherd this new technology into the world in a way that'll hopefully be a really great thing. So it was super nice to get the support of the team in what was, it felt like an unprecedented, I'm sure it's happened before, a very crazy 4 days. But I think it was about the dedication to the mission and what we're trying to achieve, not to me personally.
And that mission, what is it? What is the ultimate objective or end game, if that's even the right way to put it?
We believe that this will be one of the maybe the most important technological revolution of our lifetimes. And we want to make sure that all people get to benefit from it hugely, and that it is introduced in a way that is safe, responsible, and also exciting. Like, we want this, it's really, there's a lot of stuff going wrong in the world right now. There's a lot of reasons for pessimism or apathy. And this is a shining bright spot. And so putting the new model out yesterday and seeing how much people love it, I think that's important.
Yeah. Sam, you wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post in July, and in it you asked the provocative question, who will control the future of AI? And you pointed out that the race among countries to develop the technology, and that Russian leader Vladimir Putin has said that the country that wins the AI race will become the ruler of the world. And this is a dictator who's saying this. So Sam, what does winning the AI race even mean? And maybe with the introduction of this new version of ChatGPT, is there anything about this this new release that sort of increases the potential perils?
I partly agree with Putin and partly not. I think that if a dictator has the first very, very powerful AI in the world and wants to misuse it, that would indeed be quite bad, and that's something we cannot afford to let happen. My hope is that an American company develops the leading edge, most powerful AI, but then not that America uses it to sort of control the world. I think that would be also awful. But that we put this in the hands of many people and they use it to just make the world better, and that power is distributed and not centralized in one person, whether that person is Putin or the president of the United States. Obviously, I prefer the president of the United States, but I'd prefer it not to be in one person's hand. I think what we're doing of putting this in hundreds of millions of people's hands and letting people use the tool in a widely distributed way, I think that's very important. Yes, though, to the latter part of the question, I think the new system is I don't want to overstate this, and I certainly don't want to overhype it, but I don't want to understate it either. This is the beginning, very early. We numbered it 1 for a reason, but the beginning of a significant new paradigm. And, there's been this whole debate about, is AI capping out? Are we getting close to some ceiling? Is progress going to slow down? And I think the most important message of this release is that not only is progress not slowing down, but we have the next few years in the bag.
So Sam, you're sitting here talking with us because you are someone who grew up in St. Louis. You have these fond memories. We got a question on X from Ben Harvey. And Ben wrote, "Hello, Sam. Any short or long-term plans to give back to the STL region? North St. Louis is begging for some investment, and OpenAI satellite office would mean a lot." What do you say to Ben, Sam?
I have been thinking about what to do for St. Louis in general. It's important to me, and I want to figure out what the right thing is. Honestly, things are just so all out busy. It might not be in the cards for me the next couple of years, but at some point in my life, I really want to figure that out. In terms of an OpenAI satellite office, I think there are versions of that we could do and that we've thought about. We are mostly in SF or other kind of places in the world where there's like a lot of AI research talent. So we've got a reasonably big office in London. Sadly, but to speak about it directly, like St. Louis is not really an AI research hub. And I think it'd be hard for us to open a research-focused office here, although we could do other kinds of things. But long term, I would love to figure out what it takes to get it to a place where OpenAI would be thrilled to open an AI research office here.
Sam, you signed the Giving Pledge in May, just a few months ago. And in doing so, you joined a list of wealthy philanthropists who are committed to donating over half their fortunes. What drove that decision?
I think it's important to do. For me personally, I think supporting scientific progress is a critical area of philanthropy that I want to do more in. I'm such a believer that helps society in a huge way, and I think right now I have a little bit of inside knowledge about how to do that in a very effective way because of what these AI tools can do. I'm so excited to get going on it.
And last question in the last couple minutes that we have here. You've talked about knowledge. That is really, it's fascinating. How does the development of artificial intelligence reflect or differ from the way a human's knowledge deepens and grows?
Great question. And the honest answer is it's different, but we don't yet, I think, fully understand all of the nuance. There's a lot of things that one could say. A human can hear something one time and really understand it well, and AI might need to, hear it or have, hundreds or thousands of times. The amount of training data a human needs versus an AI is just like vastly different, and that's an area of great interest. And there's lots of other ways it's different too, but it's clearly they're clearly shared inspiration, but very different ways of learning.
Sam Altman is the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI. Thank you so much for being on your hometown public radio station today.
This is a real treat. Thank you for having me.
This episode was produced by Elaine Shaw and by our executive producer, Alex Hoyer.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.